who's next? Yeah, who's next? Who'll ride a greyhound all night long? Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. We want you to win. This podcast exists because we want to share all of our 2020 hindsight with you, get you on the right track so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls and potholes that get in every artist's way and bring your music to the world, get your songs out there, get them cut. We're so adamant about this. We're so passionate about this podcast. We had to come up with the right name, and our wordsmith, Mr. Brent Baxter, came up with the C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. See what he did there? See what he did? That was brilliant.
Uh-huh.
Brilliant.
Don't make me. Thank you.
I want to introduce you to this other voice here, my co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter. Brent is an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady Antebellum, Joe Nichols, and more. And Brent helps songwriters turn pro by teaching the art, the craft, and the business of songwriting. And you can find Brent at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
Hey, and I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. It's an innovative artist development company. They help you find your sound, and they help you find your audience. Not only do they develop and improve your artistry, they also grow and monetize your fan base, creating cash flow.
Cha-ching.
Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production, singular, no S, and why is there no S? As we know, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one Johnny D.
I just don't know what to do with that. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm working on my Ed McMahon. So one of these days.
All right, there you go. I like that.
We're going to do one of these live, and I'm going to do that. And you're going to come walking out of a curtain.
Hey-o. Well, hey, we've got a couple more reviews that we want to share with our listeners. And I think you're going to go first, right, brother?
I am going to go first because this is a Johnny episode, so you're going to do most of the talking, so I'm going to get my part out the way. All right. This is a very nice 5-star review, thank you, from Aaron McMusic. And it says, the title is A Must Listen for All Musicians Who Are Serious About Their Music Career. It says, I like to think of the weekly podcast that I hear of Johnny Dwinell and Brent Baxter as my weekly pep talk. You guys give it. These guys give it to you straight. They have amazing insight on the workings of today's music industry with tips, suggestions, value, insight, and real talk. I love how honest and straight to the point these guys are, and I thoroughly enjoy listening every week. Thank you. There are times when I listen to it and realize I'm on the right path and doing something right, and then other times where I listen and realize something I need to alter, change, or add to my music career. These guys really lay out the importance of treating your music career like a business and how you can make it in this crazy industry in this day and age. Listen, listen, listen. Thanks so much, guys.
Wow, thank you, Aaron McMusic.
Yes, that is McMusic to my ears.
That is McMusic to my ears, too.
That's awesome. That's great to hear that kind of stuff. Let us know we're on the right path.
That's right. That makes me McFreaking happy.
I'm McLoving it.
I'm McLoving it. Okay, so this is from Laura D. Love. Laura D. Love. You got to love a name like that, right? Laura D. Love. I listened to Stop Ruining Facebook, Managing Expectations, and the most important story is the one you tell yourself today, and they're full of great info. Not just for my songwriting hobby, for now, but full of valuable info for my career as an author. Time to start treating it as such. Thank you. Well, thank you, Laura D. Love. We appreciate that. It's a 5-star review, and the title on that review, by the way, is Great Info for All Creative Artists. So I like that.
That's awesome. So and 2 of those episodes she mentions were Johnny episodes.
Hey,
just point that out.
Thank you.
I got 1 in there.
She only mentioned 3, though, so I think if she would have mentioned 4, she'd have come back around to you.
It's okay. The Stop Ruining Facebook is our most downloaded episode, and that was mine. So there we go. That evens out.
That's true, and he says that because it bothers me. We've had several. I mean, there's a healthy competition here. I'm not going to lie.
We have a friendly competition about whose episodes get the most downloads, and so far there are a lot of people. There was a hot button.
I was leading forever. And then then Stop Rooting Facebook blew me, like, it didn't just, like, beat it. It, like, obliterated my record. So,
and that's all thanks to you guys. So thank you very much.
So thanks a lot. No, I still...
A lot of, just, hey, man, Facebook, it's a thing.
Even when I lose, I win. So today we're going to get into controlling your destiny. I think that I'm going to actually tell you a story. This is a real accounting of one of my favorite bands, actually, that never got any traction in the United States. They're an arena act in Europe, but they're practically unknown in the United States, and it was because of marketing. And it was out of their control. And the point that I'm going to make, and I'm going to come back around to this at the end of the podcast, is that this is now preventable. And so for those of you out there who are like, I just want to, cut a demo and get a record deal and just let them take care of everything, those days are over. And by the way, if the record industry was still pumping on all cylinders like it was 25 or 30 years ago, and you had available to you the tools and the procedures and the ability to drive, to be in the driver's seat like you do right now, you don't want anybody else taking control over this. You want to be in control of it. So that's the point that I want to get you across, and we're going to dig into this. But so this is about controlling your own destiny here, okay? I mean, would you prefer to control your own destiny or let somebody that you don't know control it for you just because in one meeting they said, man, you're great. Like, we love your music, This amazing. The story I'm going to tell you about is a killer artist. They had all the right elements. They had the right team. They had a killer debut record with a hit producer, a decent record deal, and they did everything in their power, I believe, to do it right. This wasn't a story of
self-destruction.
It's not that. These guys were firing on all cylinders, and they were pretty smart dudes, I think. And I don't know them personally. I am 1 degree of separation away from them, but just last week I was listening to the records again. They're killer. But outside forces impacted their destiny, and it changed how they're perceived in this country significantly. And it just doesn't have to happen to any other artist like that anymore. So you have more control over your destiny than ever before, but you have to, number one, realize it. You have to take ownership of it and responsibility of it and begin controlling it and make those your goals rather than I just need somebody who loves me enough to do it for me, because it can be a mess. The band that I'm talking about is a band called the Dan Reed Network. You ever hear those guys, Brent?
No, I don't think I've ever heard of them.
Do you stream at all? Do you stream on Amazon or?
Yeah, some Amazon Music, some Spotify, some of that stuff.
Yeah, or Spotify. Yeah, okay. So check them out, man. Check out the Dan Reed Network. It's
Reed, R-E-E-D or R-E-I-D?
R-E-E-D, the Dan Reed Network. And unless you're European, and we have a bunch of European listeners, you're probably like, who the hell are they? Okay.
Well, let me say to all our European listeners, good day, mate.
That's damn it. We'll just let that one sit. That was intentional. So the Dan Reed Network was like a fresh breath of air for the hair band era. Okay, and obviously that's where I came from. But they were a unique, interesting mix of like Prince meets Bon Jovi with killer Steven Tyler falsetto screams. Like, wow, yeah, just super.
Okay, I'm in.
Super awesome.
Okay.
And they had a hair band image with an 80s rock appeal, but they were funky, man, with really, really good songs. And what's interesting about this band, and I really recommend, listen to some of these records because they still stand up. They were diverse musically and ethnically within the band. So this group was just so interesting. All total, the group was descended from these different ancestries: German, Hawaiian, Native American, African American, Japanese American, Jamaican, Italian American, and Jewish.
Awesome.
Right? I mean, and obviously a few of the guys had mixes of those in there. There's not like 20 guys in the band. I mean, there's 5 guys. But
some guys pulling double duty. Yeah.
So they They were a Mercury Records major label artist, and they had big time management, a hit producer, a major label budget, and a killer record. But they never caught on in America, and they're American. They're from the Portland area, the Northwest Portland area. So what happened? Why didn't they fulfill their destiny? A marketing fail is what happened, and in this case, it wasn't their fault. The thing is, there are a million stories out there. Brent, when we start digging into this, I mean, please, like you probably know 20 people with the same kind of story about what happened, you know? And this is a huge issue for me because I see the future, and I see I've had some artists that have graduated up to more major sort of, they're knocking on the major label doors with all this big team around them of people who do it the old way. And I worry for them because you know what they don't have right now? They don't have an audience. They have all the talent in the world to get those people as intoxicated as they are about the artist. And they should be that intoxicated about the artist. It's great. But because they don't have the audience, like I worry about what happened over at Wheelhouse, Brent, to all the artists who got signed because they had this amazing talent. They had great songs, but they didn't have an audience when Granger Smith came.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody got put on hold, right?
Yeah.
And so here's this story. This is a pretty crazy story. So first off, by the way, the band put out a self-released EP in 1986, which they got spins on their local radio station with Portland Z100. And that's how they got the label attention. So they weren't just waiting around on the couch, pulling on the bong, waiting for the door to knock and for freaking Scott Borchetta to be there, like going, "Hey man, I heard you guys were great from a friend of a friend, and I want to give you a deal."
Fairy record princess come flitting through the window at night and leave a record deal under their pillow.
Exactly right. No, they went out and they did something, and they got some attention. They had something that was pretty incredible, and they didn't wait for the label to discover them. They made themselves discoverable. And the label's called down. I'm going to say that one more time. They did not wait for the label to discover them. They made themselves discoverable. And this was in 1986, before Twitter, before YouTube, before Instagram, before Facebook. They made themselves discoverable, okay? And they were creating their own destiny. And then the Dan Reed Network formed a management relationship shortly after that with big-time promoter icon Bill Graham. And if you're not familiar with the name Bill Graham, he was instrumental in the careers of the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers, who are close to my heart, Janis Joplin. He at one point owned the Fillmore West, and if you know the Allman Brothers, and the Fillmore East too, by the way, but that's one of the most iconic Allman Brothers records. It's a live show from that club. Bill owned that, and he loved the Dan Reed Network, and so he was all about it. And because of the number one single on their local radio station, they garnered interest from Derek Schulman from Polygram, who signed these little baby bands you might have heard of, Cinderella, Bon Jovi. He had been around the block, and they got a deal on Mercury Records, which is a division of Polygram. And in the winter of 1987, Dan Reed Network released their debut record, which was produced by Bruce Fairbairn, who did Bon Jovi's New Jersey and Slippery When Wet. He did all the 1980s Aerosmith records, Pump, Permanent Vacation. I can't remember what the one after Pump was called, but he did those. I mean, the dude was all over it.
Doing all right, yeah.
Yeah, he super, super sharp. And, I mean, just a killer record. Even if you don't dig the style on this, I mean, check it out and listen to it, because you'll see its quality. It's different. It's unique. And it had a lot. And clearly, because of what they had going on in Europe, and by the way, they're still out there today. In fact, one of my friends is playing with Dan Reed, I think this month on an acoustic show or whatever. But they were huge in Europe, and they should have been huge here, but they weren't because of what we're going to talk about. So everything's coming up roses for Dan Reed Network, right? They've got the major label. They've got the killer producer. They've got the different sound. They've got an iconic manager. They've got they produced the record, and it's all right there. Everything.
The golden ticket.
The golden ticket. Golden ticket. Everything that everybody. If I just meet that one guy,
everything's coming up Willy Wonka.
Everything's going to happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, so here's the problem. They're Mercury, and the solution, by the way, to a degree. They're Mercury Records label mates, Def Leppard. 1987. They finally released in 1987 Hysteria. Now, in 1983, Pyromania came out. It took them all the way through the tour, and 1984, the drummer lost his arm, and
which we talked about. Yeah,
we talked about that. And then this record was 3 years overdue, and it finally came out. It came out right before Dan Reed Network. So this record, Hysteria, was the follow-up to the 10 million plus selling Pyromania. And obviously the label had huge expectations on the sales for Hysteria. And if you think about this, and this is huge, but that record, the record labels were grossing pretty much around $30 a record back in the day. That's what it would be worth in today's dollars. Okay, and we can surmise that if the labels are getting around 50%, they sold a CD for $16, they were getting probably 8-ish for that, because obviously the distributors had to make money, the record stores had to make money. So they were making $15 a record, and that was $150 million freaking dollars, not including publishing revenue on Pyromania that they made. Big bucks, right?
Big bucks, yeah.
But Hysteria was plagued by delays, massively over budget. The drummer, we said, lost his arm. The band was over the tedious production process with Mutt Lange and that they endured on Pyromania, and they chose Jim Steinman.
Meatloaf.
Who he wrote and was credited for Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell, and they chose him to produce Hysteria. And Steinman's approach was to record like a raw rock sound that was a huge departure from the polished pop metal sound of Pyromania, which was a breakthrough record. Like that was... Like, we were used to that sound now, but you got to realize that was the one. That was the first one where everybody... I mean, Metallica's Black Record wouldn't have been Metallica's Black Record without Pyromania. Like, that was the one that was like blew everybody's minds. And once the band realized that this was going the wrong way, they sacked Simon, but they still had to pay his $2 million production fee. And, I think Joe Elliott was quoted as saying something like, Todd Rundgren produced Bat Out of Hell, Jim Steinman wrote it. And how, in other words, like how he got into our camp as a producer is beyond me. But they reinstated Mutt Lange. They got to work on a record. They scrapped everything that they had previously recorded. And it was going to take a while because it was Mutt Lange. So by the release of Hysteria, this is a fact, Def Leppard had to sell 5 million copies, break even.
Ouch.
So their record label take on that, they're in the whole $75 million freaking dollars on this record and freaking out, right? Now, keep in mind, big record labels back then, I mean, this sounds like a lot of money, but only 10% of their artists ever made any money on any given record label. So when your biggie, which is supposed to be even bigger, goes that far deep in the hole, people are getting fired, stuff is on the line, stock prices are changing. Like, this is a big, big, big deal, okay? And obviously, Mercury Records was nervous. I mean, that's just too much money. So the record, when it was released, immediately shot up the charts in England, but the momentum from Pyromania in the United States had faded a lot, and the new record was tanking. Their first single,
Hysteria was tanking.
Yeah, Hysteria was tanking in the United States. First single was Women, and people were just like, what the hell is that? That didn't happen. Second single was Animal. That was, people were like, what? They wasn't getting any attention. They weren't getting spins. They weren't really playing it enough on it. It just wasn't catching on. They were playing on MTV, but it wasn't catching on. So what happened to the Dan Reed Network was this record for Def Leppard had to win. And so in the late 80s, when records were fat with cash and making tons of money, and that was the heyday of the music industry, it was all hands on deck. All the capital resources, all the human resources, all the relationship resources, everything went to getting that record out of the hole and making sure that the label didn't lose money on that. And that meant that everybody, all the new artists and all the baby bands and all the bands that weren't Def Leppard on Mercury Records, unless you were Bon Jovi, right? Or Cinderella, unless you were a hit act already, you were ignored because they could not afford to give you the attention that they needed to give you. And so the dynamic, the third single was Hysteria, still dragging on and on and on. And at this point, it wasn't until Pour Some Sugar on Me was released that all of a sudden, then it hit. All of a sudden, America remembered, right? Like, this is Def Leppard. Oh, right, you know? And they suffered a painful, slow death because of abandonment, you know?
So Dan Reed Network suffered a painful, slow death.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. The label couldn't and wouldn't afford to promote it correctly with all the hysteria from Hysteria. Plain and simple. Go. So somewhere along the line, the band apprehensively, Dan Reed Network, changed management companies to C.L.I.M.B with Peter Mensch and Cliff Bernstein. They got rid of Bill Graham, and who's like one of the first guys to believe in them. I believe this band to be loyal dudes, you know, and I'm sure that was a big decision for them. But C.L.I.M B ironically started. That whole management company started with Def Leppard, okay? And so, it was these guys obviously putting the pressure on the record label saying, hey, keep coming out with the singles. We got to keep this going. We're going to make this happen. And I remember hearing, and this was, by the way, C.L.I.M B is huge. I mean, they managed Metallica, Queensryche, AC/DC, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're some major, major, major acts. And I remember an interview with Peter Mensch talking about, finally, when Pour Some Sugar on Me came out. Like, they were selling 1 million copies a week.
Wow.
Like, it was just boom, 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 boom. That was such a big hit. So Dan Reed Network finally gets on the road as an opener on the last American leg of Def Leppard's Hysteria tour. But it really wasn't until their second album was released and they toured with the Rolling Stones over in Europe that they blew up. Over there.
Over there, right.
And not over here, So they're still out there doing it today. They never caught on in America. And it was largely due to a circumstance that revolved around the marketing of their debut record. And, pick any iconic record. Like, that's that record sold something like 20 million copies. Hysteria did, right? How about Fleetwood Mac's Rumors? How about Hotel California from the Eagles? How about... throw in some country records, right? I probably how about Shania Twain's big records that Mutt Lange produced, right? Like when you or the Dixie Chicks or
pop act Thriller.
Yeah, whenever that happens, I promise you, there's like 20 bands or more on that record label who just got screwed because that was so big and all the money had to go to that they just didn't get the attention that they needed. And guys, this was when they were making money.
This is when they all have to make money.
Yeah, the bigger band with the bigger budget and the bigger fires to put out is going to get all the attention at the big label, while the promising baby bands with all the talent in the world and all the potential are going to suffer. Now, take that story, because that hasn't changed. That dynamic hasn't changed in today's world. But what has changed in today's world?
Everything else.
Yeah. Record labels don't have any money. They don't have that kind of cash. So we talked about sort of Granger Smith being the messiah of what I believe the music industry is, the new music industry is. I see the writing on the wall. Artists are going to figure out, because there's going to be somebody else that does it after him. And what did Granger Smith do? In one sentence, he created a huge empire from his laptop as an independent artist that was so sexy that the record labels were wanting to sign him for years and years and years. And he kept saying no, because he didn't need them until it was time for him to get a number one. And in order to get a number one on P1 radio, he was going to need the record label to do that because they own that. And so then he made the deal. Well, I can promise you, and I don't have inside information on this, but I mean, Granger Smith is no dummy, and neither is his team. Like there's the four people on the team. I know one of them personally, smart people. They put that whole thing together. There's no way that they didn't have, and this is an opinion, okay, to be clear, there's no way they didn't have some kind of performance-based clause in that contract.
Yeah.
Like, you get me a number one, or I walk across the street and I owe you nothing, because you don't get to tell me why it didn't work, because it's working.
Right, exactly.
For me already.
If this doesn't work, it's because of you.
That's right. And this is, so why wouldn't you want to, as an artist, for everybody listening to me out there, why would you want to be signed before you've crafted some leverage to apply to the deal? Mm-hmm. Why is that a goal of yours? It's a bad goal. You know, you have the power to construct your own leverage today and create your own destiny. Okay, and you can do what the Dan Reed Network couldn't do. You can define your audience. You can target that audience easily, for free, from your social media accounts. You can connect with that audience for free from the social media accounts. Before, you couldn't do that. You had to hire PR companies. You had to go out on tour. You had to do all these things to bring your talent into their town. But now you can sit in front of your iPhone, that you all have, and play on YouTube. And blow people's minds, you know? And you can capture the contact information for your audience and grow them and begin that relationship. And you guess what you're going to learn? What works and what doesn't work. And so when the big guys do come in and say, man, you're the best, Brent, we want to sign you. You know, and you're going to be like, well, here's how this is going to look.
Right.
Okay. And when they say, we got this great idea, we think you should put on a clown outfit with the horn, you know, and the big shoes. Right. And we're going to put you in a video. And you're like, no, that's not going to work.
Because I know my people, and my people expect this, that, and the other from me.
Exactly. And this is not brain surgery. Okay. You and I were talking before the podcast. I'm going to give a shout out to my intern, Lexi. Lexi, the other night was in the studio with me. We were doing some background vocals for a Canadian artist that I produced a couple tracks on, and we needed some. We had a bunch of people in the studio. We had a little party going on because we needed a party vibe to record that party bar kind of scene thing, and do some shout vocals. And we're in there, and she tells me afterwards, she's like, "I got to tell you something." And I said, "What?" And she said, I went, and she's sharp, right? And this makes my day when my interns not only come and deliver, because all my interns deliver, but when they actually apply what they're learning to something that they're doing themselves.
That's awesome.
And she's like, I did this hair and makeup thing on YouTube, and she goes, I didn't want to tell you until I hit 1,000, but I got 1,000 subscribers, just doing exactly what you told me to do. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you. She's like, I'm so proud of me too. She goes, it's only 1,000. And I'm like, that is huge. Like, it starts with 1,000, you know?
Right.
And then it goes to 10,000, and then it goes to 100,000. You just got to keep growing. If you can get 1,000, you can do that 100 more times, right?
Right, yeah.
And she's like, I know. And that's one semester she is with me. You know, she's not even a whole semester. She's not even done with it yet. So shout out to you, Lexi. I think that's amazing. But guys, this is just take ownership of it.
I mean, one thing I'm thinking about too is, okay, one, you're at the mercy. If you don't come in with stroke, you don't come in with your fan base and with some leverage, you're at the mercy of getting, Def Lepparded, right?
Yeah.
Or Thrillered or whatever. And so then you're waiting in line, and you're just waiting, you're atrophying, right? And you don't have the leverage. The other thing is, you're not having the record come out, you're not making any money either.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe they gave you an advance, but you're sitting there with nothing happening. How are you going to go make a living? You got to go wait tables while you're waiting for your record deal to start kicking in again. Well, if you got a bunch of fans out there, there's your cash machine.
Yeah.
There's how you can go and do what you want to do and wait and not have to wait on your label. Oh, I can't put any shows together. I can't do this. I don't have any fans. Well, you got fans. You can do stage at shows, sell tickets, or you can go out and play shows and sell tickets, because you got the people there that already like what you do, and you can go reach them. It's like, all right, well, let me know when whatever's big record it's done, and I'm going to go play shows, and at least I make a living. Yeah. And so it gives you definitely a lot more empowerment, a lot more ways.
And even if you're not like, okay, so we talk about making a living, right? And that's a big goal. But it starts with, and this is what I did with Daredevil. It starts with making the first dollar. Right? Yeah. And then you're like, okay. And then, so for Daredevil, for 4 years, Daredevil grew at this astounding percentage rate, right? 300-400%. Every year we made way more than we did the first year. But the first year we made $1,300 in marketing.
Yeah.
Not enough to do anything for anybody at any time, anywhere, not a living. Right? And so if I did that 400%, that the next year we made like $4 or $5 grand. And if I did that 400%, it was like 20 grand. Still, 3 years in now, 20 grand, whew, getting close, but that's brutal, right?
Yeah.
And just so understand, this is a business, understand the percentages, and just take every win and be like, okay, we did that, we can do it again now, right? And so this is what I want. It's a slow process and put it together, but people, if you want a manager, bring them an audience. Bring them something to manage. You'll get what you want. You want a booking agent, bring them an audience. And you're going to get what you want. You want a record label? Believe me, everybody's going to come looking for you. When you start becoming discoverable and you start making a dent in the universe and stop relying on everybody else. That's just an excuse not to work. It's just an excuse not to think for yourself and not to do it. Okay? I suck at technology. I hate this back-end crap, but I do it. I'm better at it now than I was 2 years ago because I've had to learn to do it. Right? It's what we do. And it's just never been easier for you to be able to accomplish that and to collect. If you're playing live shows, then every time that you are up on stage, I don't care if it's in front of 5 people and you're not collecting contact data, it's a wasted opportunity. If you're not expanding your social media to reach new people every day as opposed to just putting out content for the people who currently follow you, it's a wasted day. It's one more day that you wasted. The new music business is all about artists with audiences. Record labels are not developing talent. They are acquisition-based entities. That's fancy mumbo-jumbo language for they're buying small businesses. And if you don't have a small business, they ain't going to buy you. I don't care how talented you are. All right, so I'm generalizing, but you're just not going to get signed on talent alone. And I have some artists, quite frankly, that have worked with me in the past. I got a couple of them that are about ready, that have a lot of really big people hustling for them to get them deals. And my biggest fear is that the record labels are going to say yes because they don't have audiences yet. What happens? What happens when the next Granger Smith comes along or the next Def Leppard happens and you're like on that label and you're shelved, So bands like Dan Reed Network didn't have this kind of power because they didn't know who their audience was and they couldn't reach them outside of radio. But you can. You can do it.
Hallelujah.
And you've already got everything you need on your phone right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you need. You just need to learn and you need to play in the sandbox, okay? And trust me, you get that audience up and you're going to get, the more audience you have, the more leverage you're going to create. You're going to open up cash registers that you didn't even know existed. You're going to be like, we can get paid for that? There's new technologies that are coming out. We've talked about the iDiddy card in the past. We've talked about freeform development. These companies are based on permission marketing, on the artists that are going to be able to exploit these technologies to their benefit are going to be artists with audiences, period, end of story, So go out and find it. And that's all I got to say about that.
Excellent. And you want to bring leverage that way, the next pour some sugar on me won't pour some cold water on your career.
Yeah, man. You want to come in with that whole thing like, you know what, here's what's going to happen if I'm going to sign with you. Instead of having your hat in your hand and waiting for that, you want them calling you, and then you have to, ultimately at Daredevil, my biggest wish for all my artists is that when that day comes, when they get that phone call about that big deal, that they're conflicted about it.
Yeah.
I want to be scratching that like, man, I don't know. I don't know.
What can they do for me? I don't know.
I want them to think like that because that, by the way, just that energy right there means power. It's more power.
The ability to walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Say no. So, hey guys, that's not all. If you're new to the podcast and you haven't, you're not aware, I've got a best-selling Twitter book. You can get it for free. It teaches you. It's a tour through the app. It's 101. Listen, forget about Twitter. The code that I give you to crack Twitter is the same for Instagram, and it's the same for a lot of social media platforms. So, but it'll teach you how to get 1,000 new followers every single month, spending about 15 minutes a day. So it's completely doable within your busy schedule, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's giftfromjohnny.com, JOHNNY, giftfromjohnny.com. Just click on that button, tell me where to send it. We'll get it out to you right away and start doing what Lexi did. I mean, I got an intern. She's got a bigger audience than some major label artists right now. That's no joke. Like, they don't have any money. So,
I remember I was writing with a guy that had a major record label deal. And this was some years ago, before all this really blew up. But still, I was going during the research, wanted to know what was going on with the song. I had it hopefully on his record. Couldn't find him didn't have a website. Yeah. Didn't have, I was like, oh, this is not, even then, this was like, 10, 15 years ago or something, going, oh, this is not a good sign. This is not a good sign. He's on a label and no presence.
Yeah, now you got your record label. Hey, congratulations. That and $2.50 is going to get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Yeah. And the guy that's on the label probably going to be the one serving you the coffee, not for nothing. So you want to be in the driver's seat, and you get to be in the driver's seat if you just take ownership of it. So anyway, guys, again, this podcast exists because we want you to win. We want you to learn how to do this for yourself, and we want you to keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.